centers, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Buenos días, cabina de español. Cabina de español, buenos días. Segunda consola español. Sí, gracias, Claudio. Good morning, English booth.
Hi, yes, how are you? Can you hear me? Okay, yes, 1 second, okay? Hold on.
Thanks.
Hi, it's the second console. Can you hear me? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Buenos días, cabina de portugués. Buen día, portugués.
Porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
La CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de nuestro objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral. Que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus. We commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of the one and triune God. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now stand to observe a moment of silence for the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. Thank you. May he rest in peace. We now move to item 1. To begin our proceedings, I submit for the consideration of this Council the draft order of business, document CD/OD 156/25 Rev 1, which was distributed by the Secretariat. If there are no objections, the draft order of business is approved. Approved. The theme of this year's Earth Day, our power, our planet, challenges us to reflect on our relationship with the environment, and by extension, our planet. This year's emphasis on energy brings into sharp focus an issue of critical importance to many in this hemisphere, particularly to small island developing states. Today's discussion on responding to the critical energy transition priorities in the Americas, energy security, resilience, and sustainability, is a call to examine more closely the energy needs of the region with a view towards determining the best strategies and approaches for addressing the challenges which we face. It also urges us to explore the multitude of opportunities which exist for developing this important sector as we seek to build security and resilience. There is a lot of work to be done to ensure that the energy future of the Americas is assured. This includes actions geared at expanding access to clean energy and protecting energy infrastructure, as well as concerted efforts to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. All of this requires improving and strengthening regional cooperation for greater efficacy. To begin today's dialogue, I am pleased to welcome Secretary General Luis Almagro, who will deliver the opening remarks. Welcome, Secretary General. You have the floor.
Happy Earth Day. Today, as we mark the 55th anniversary of Earth Day, a pivotal moment born in 1970, we reflect on the profound transformation our planet has undergone. While challenges like population growth, pollution, and climate change persist, this Earth Day theme, our power, our planet, compel us to focus on the vital role of energy in shaping our future. Over these past 5 decades, alongside environmental shift, we have witnessed remarkable innovation, particularly in renewable energy technologies, which are crucial to powering a sustainable future for all. At the General Secretariat of the OAS, our commitment to helping member states sustainably manage their environmental resources is intrinsically linked to the energy transition. We recognize that secure, reliable, and clean energy is fundamental to human health, economic prosperity, and regional stability. Together with our partners, we are dedicated to fostering sustainable energy practices across the Americas. The reaffirmation of the Hemispheric Sustainable Development Agenda at the October 2023 meeting of Minister and high-level authorities of sustainable development, under the leadership of the government of the Bahamas and Minister Michael Harkitis, underscored the critical importance of sustainable energy within the Declaration of Nassau and its action plan. These agreements provide a strong mandate for the OAS to intensify its work in the energy sector. Thank you, Minister, for being with us today. Great to have you here in the House of the Americas. These mandates guide our collaborative initiatives with key partners like CAF, IDB, GEF, and organizations from the private sector and civil society. A significant focus of our work is on energy, recognizing interconnectedness with water management, climate action, disaster resilience, ocean sustainability, and the circular economy. Our contributions in the energy sector are designed to bolster economic prosperity, security, and the well-being of our populations. For instance, the OAS Climate Change Technical Assistance Facility can play a crucial role in empowering our most climate-vulnerable member states to access global climate finance. A key aspect of this support involves developing bankable projects in the energy sector, such as the cross-border clean energy connections, resilient microgrids powered by renewables, and nature-based solutions that often have significant energy co-benefits. This year's Earth Day, with its powerful theme, Our Power, Our Planet, directly addressed the heart of our work. It's remarkable to consider the progress since 1970, when electricity access in Latin America and the Caribbean was limited. Today, around 98% of homes have access to this essential service. This progress underscores the importance of energy development, but now our focus must be on sustainable energy development. Over this same period, the growth of renewable energy solutions, primarily hydropower, wind, solar, and geothermal, to supply over 64% of the regional electricity, is a testament to our collective potential. This highlights the increasing recognition of clean energy as a viable and necessary path forward. The development of CPAC regional power interconnection, a 1,800-kilometer network linking 6 Central American countries, stands as a concrete example of enhanced energy security and regional cooperation. This initiative demonstrates the power of interconnected energy systems. Throughout this evolution, the OAS has been committed partner to member states in enhancing the security, reliability, and crucially the sustainability of their energy sectors. Our programs have facilitated cross-border interconnection for more resilient energy grids, promoted rural electrification through renewable sources, supported the modernization of power utilities, and championed the adoption of sustainable energy technologies. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, born from the Fifth Summit of the Americas, has been a cornerstone of our efforts for the past 15 years. Through multiple energy meetings, including last year in the Dominican Republic, we have fostered dialogue and collaboration toward a more sustainable energy future for the hemisphere. Today, Earth Day event provides a vital platform to hear from our esteemed partners and energy experts. We eagerly anticipate learning from member states as we collectively explore innovative pathways to further enhance the sustainability, security, reliability, and integration of our energy system across the Americas. This is our shared power to shape the healthier planet. Let us embrace the power we have to create a sustainable energy future for our planet. Happy Earth Day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary General, for joining us today. It is always a pleasure to have you attend the meetings of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development. We are also deeply honored to have with us the Honorable Michael Halkitis, Minister of Economic Affairs of the Bahamas and Chair of the Inter-American Committee on Sustainable Development, SIDS. Minister Halkitis, we welcome your dedication to and leadership of the work of the SIDS. We express to you our gratitude for your commitment to the sustainable development of the region. We are extremely thankful to you for joining our discussion today on an issue which is of great importance, not only to your country, but also to the wider Caribbean community and to the hemisphere. Minister Halkitis, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gilchrist, Chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Secretary General Luis Almagro, Executive Secretary Kim Osborne, permanent and alternate representatives and observers, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you once again in the House of the Americas as we join citizens around the world to commemorate Earth Day. We meet at a time when the relevance and efficacy of multilateral institutions such as the OAS and of multilateralism itself is being tested. In addition to the complex, cross-border and interconnected triple crises confronting all of us in the form of mounting man-made climate change, the soaring cost of living driven by inflation and trade disruptions, our governments face shrinking fiscal spaces fueled by burgeoning debt. A key driver of all of these crises across our hemisphere has been the cost of energy. For most countries in the Americas, the high costs, volatility, and unreliability of energy has acted as an obstacle to growth, development, and diversification. These have commandeered the balance sheets of households and governments, impacting foreign direct and local investment decisions and stifling the capacity of local businesses to contain costs, expand, and create new jobs. If we are to meet the moment and address these triple crises, it will be driven in large part by addressing our issues relating to energy security, energy resilience, energy interdependence, and energy efficiency and diversification. The Caribbean region in particular continues to contend with serious challenges related to both climate and energy insecurity due to high reliance on imported fossil fuels, the increasingly destructive and exorbitant impacts of climate change-fueled natural disasters, and ever-intensifying costs associated with the maintenance of legacy energy infrastructure. The region's high reliance on fossil fuels, particularly diesel, for meeting energy needs for local transportation and shipping, energy-intensive industries such as tourism and general electricity generation, has the Caribbean region amongst the world leaders in energy costs. While per kilowatt-hour prices have generally been declining on average in the Caribbean, these prices are still more than double the rate being paid here in the United States, for example, with some countries still contending with close to 4 times the per kilowatt-hour cost experienced on average in the United States. The difficulties stemming from dependency on fossil fuel imports are exacerbated by the persistent price volatility in global oil markets. For many of our countries, fuel import bills routinely top food import bills, particularly over the past 2 decades. And when combined with the costs associated with ever-present demands for maintenance and repair of legacy energy infrastructure, often triggered by the destructive impacts of climate-fueled natural disasters, the related fiscal pressures on households and governments have been onerous. While the aforementioned challenges are broadly shared, the Caribbean region is not a monolith, however. And so while the Northern Caribbean remains nearly completely reliant on fuel imports, several countries in the Southern Caribbean region are fossil fuel rich. Trinidad and Tobago has some of the world's oldest and most mature oil fields, and the greenfield oil and gas developments in Guyana and Suriname are amongst the newest, most dynamic and promising in the world. Belize, Suriname, Barbados, and Dominica, due to hydro and solar power, are amongst the region's leaders in renewable energy generation, with renewable energy constituting up to half of total national energy generation capacity. And while the Caribbean region generally has high potential for exploiting solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal energy, installed renewable energy capacity across most countries in the region still remains relatively low, at less than 10% of total power generation. The lack of comprehensive and systematic policy approaches to scaling renewable energy development, the limited land availability for developing renewable energy projects at financially viable scale, and the upfront capital intensive requirements for grid modernization and battery storage for renewables continues to limit the region from fully unlocking its potential. In the Bahamas, the broader challenges facing the wider region and hemisphere are complicated by our own unique hurdles stemming from being an archipelago and having to duplicate the provision of government services across many islands and 100,000 square miles of ocean. In order to respond to the country's long-standing challenges with energy insecurity, the Bahamas has recently embarked upon the country's first comprehensive energy reforms, which is delivering utility-scale solar power generation in the capital, New Providence, hybrid grids that facilitate solar and biomass cogeneration on the other family of islands, improvement to transmission and distribution systems in the capital, diversification of the energy mix through incorporation of liquefied natural gas to address challenges with intermittency from solar power, a comprehensive approach to enhancing energy efficiency with energy audits and efficiency upgrades for government buildings, technical support and retrofit guidance for commercial customers, an educational outreach program for consumers, tax incentives for electric vehicles, and the replacement of street lighting in the capital with LED bulbs. Nonetheless, while our countries have been making strides with developing more sustainable energy mixes, there is still an important role for regional cooperation and collaboration to bolster member states' efforts. The Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan 2023 to 2030, adopted in the Bahamas, lays out further collaborative actions for the hemisphere to accelerate clean, sustainable, renewable, and just energy transitions, including strengthening national planning and policy frameworks, promoting sustainable transport and sustainable fuels, technical assistance to increase the share of clean, sustainable, and renewable energy in the energy mix, fostering effective and harmonized approaches to energy governance, and facilitating collaboration and dialogue among member states to spur renewable energy sector initiatives. I am particularly enthused about the work underway to develop a hub for climate finance at the OAS, which we are hopeful can be launched in the margins of the upcoming COP30 in Brazil later this year. We envision this hub will serve as a repository of climate finance opportunities and provide much-needed technical assistance to support member states with the development of bankable projects and financing strategies, particularly for smaller OAS member states who may have constrained capacity. Further, when we examine the energy policies and goals of the governments of the region, it is clear that there is no shortage of ambition for green energy uptake and decarbonization over the next 5 to 10 years, but financing support is needed to help countries bridge the gap between ambition and deployment. For example, the Caribbean Development Bank recently reported that annual investments in renewable energy capacity in the Caribbean average US $75 million, which is significantly below the approximately US $1.3 billion per annum needed to achieve regional energy targets, significantly below. And while states must do more, we also face real limitations due to constrained fiscal space and high indebtedness, which for SIDS like the Bahamas and others is largely a consequence of cascading costs to recover from climate change-fueled disasters. The OAS must take on more of a leading role in advocating for the necessary reforms to the global financial architecture so that it better meets the development financing needs of the developing countries of the Americas. As chair of the Inter-American Committee for Sustainable Development, I therefore wish to propose that the OAS consider convening a meeting to bring together multilateral development banks, climate financing funds and facilities, non-governmental development partners, and member states and observers during the margins of the upcoming fall World Bank meetings in October to engage on ways to better meet the needs of the hemisphere for affordable and accessible climate and development financing at the requisite scale. We invite fellow member states, observers, and development partners to join us as we continue to build initiatives to give life to the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan and bolster the work of the OAS in sustainable development. Madam Chair, colleague member states, as I close, I reiterate there is still a strong and important role that multilateralism and development cooperation must play as we chart a course forward for a more sustainable and resilient Americas. On this Earth Day, I therefore charge all of us to recommit the OAS to the relevant work of supporting hemispheric efforts towards sustainable development. And I invite each member state, observer, and development partner present to consider how we can meaningfully contribute to the advancement of this work. The OAS will continue to play an important role as a political and dispute settlement forum, particularly as natural resource disputes increasingly are driving bilateral tensions in the hemisphere, but it can and must be more than just a space for dialogue. If we are to meet our higher collective political aspirations to mitigate and, where possible, reverse the worst effects of man-made climate change, we must ensure we also meet our citizens' basic expectations for reliable and cheap energy to power households and businesses. I believe that we can and must achieve both objectives together, as it is the best way we can preserve the only home we have, planet Earth, for future generations. I thank you, and once again, happy Earth Day.
Thank you, Minister Halkitis, for your thoughtful reflections and perspectives on the theme, notably on the cascading and compounding effects of the triple crises. We note and appreciate the remedies which you proposed while being mindful of the inherent challenges. We remain hopeful, however, that the proposals for cooperation will advance us on our path to fulfilling our citizens' basic needs for secure and resilient energy. Thank you, Minister. We now turn to a panel of distinguished experts who will share their perspectives on the challenges and opportunities facing the region in advancing secure, resilient, and sustainable energy systems. Our first speaker is Ms. Noemi Hernandez Rodriguez, Senior Country Officer and Secretary to the GEF Council at the Global Environment Facility. Ms. Hernandez Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for inviting the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, to speak on this significant occasion of Earth Day. It is a pleasure to join the panel with Honorable Michael Halkitis, Minister of Economic Affairs of the Bahamas and Chair of the Inter-American Committee on Sustainable Development, and my panel colleagues from the IDB, the CAF, and the OAS. I would like to begin by emphasizing the incredible natural wealth that Latin America and the Caribbean exemplify. This region is home to some of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world, and it is our duty to protect and sustain these invaluable resources. The environmental richness of this region is not just a regional treasure, but a global one, contributing significantly to the health and stability of our planet's climate and biodiversity. In this regard, the GEF plays a pivotal role in addressing the world's most pressing environmental challenges. While our work in combating climate change is key, we also focus on preserving biodiversity, protecting international waters, reducing land degradation, and eliminating harmful chemicals. Over the past 3 decades, the JEF has provided more than $26 billion in financing, primarily as grants, and mobilized an additional $148 billion in co-financing. Of these, $5 billion have been allocated to the Latin America and Caribbean region. Our projects, ranging from supporting renewable energy initiatives to promoting sustainable agriculture and forest conservation, empower local communities and foster sustainable practices. Speaking about the region, it's also relevant to highlight that our CEO is from the region as well, so it is very close to his heart. Currently, the JEF is operating under the 8th replenishment with the motto, Happy Planet, Happy People, which reflects the close interaction between nature and the social and economic components relevant to the work of the Inter-American Committee on Integral Development. Working towards a healthy environment is not just an ecological imperative. It is crucial for development, resilience, job creation, and a host of other co-benefits. By prioritizing environmental health, we are laying the foundation for a more sustainable and prosperous future. Turning on today's topic, climate change is one of the most critical issues we face. The increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and shifting climate patterns pose significant threats to ecosystems and human society and economy alike. In Latin America and the Caribbean, climate change exacerbates existing vulnerabilities, impacting water resources, agriculture, coastal areas, and many others that Minister Halkitis very well described in his opening remarks. In climate change, the JEF supports countries in key sectors, including energy and materials efficiency, decarbonized power systems, zero-emission mobility scale-up, and nature-based solutions with high mitigation impact. Latin America and the Caribbean received more than $80 million in climate change mitigation focal area just in the past replenishment. This 8th replenishment, we have programs seeking decarbonization of economies while protecting nature and reducing pollution, expected to result in approximately 88 million tons of CO2 emissions reductions. Allow me here to pause to give a very clear example. The Uruguay Wind Energy Program. The JEF helped to create the enabling environment for the deployment of wind energy aimed to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions by implementing large-scale, grid-connected wind energy systems in Uruguay, with the goal to remove barriers for the commercial development of wind energy in the country. In 2008, Uruguay faced a challenge many developing countries face. The economy was growing, but the electrical energy to fuel all that growth was not sufficient. However, with the implementation of this program, the country successfully deployed non-conventional renewable energy. Today, after 18 years of this project, Uruguay is a global leader of renewable energy, generating 90% of its energy from sources like wind, solar, hydroelectric, and biomass. Therefore, as we move forward, on the opportunity side, I would like to extend an invitation to work together with the JEF partnership. We do not stand alone. Working together, working with countries, international organizations, institutions, indigenous groups, women, youth, and local communities is what makes us strong. I would also like to highlight our recent partnership with the Organization of the American States. This collaboration aims to strengthen the capacity of the JEF focal points in the Americas, ensuring that they have their resources and support needed to effectively follow up on our environmental projects. Together, we are working towards a shared vision of a sustainable and prosperous future for all. As we celebrate Earth Day, let us remember that our power lies in our collective action. By working together, we can overcome the environmental and climate change that we face and build a better world. Very happy to be here to have a discussion, to get to know you, learn from each other, and seek opportunities to work together. Happy Earth Day. Thank you.
Ms. Hernandez Rodriguez, we thank you for your important insights. We are grateful for the JEF's long-standing partnership with the OAS and for its support to our work in sustainable development. Happy Earth Day to you as well. I am now equally pleased to welcome Mr. Ignacio Lorenzo, Director of Technical Advisory on Biodiversity and Climate at the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, CAF. Mr. Lorenzo, you have the floor.
Greetings. Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, Honorable Minister Michael Alcides, Head of the Commission, and representatives and from the countries in the region for the OAS, and also to the panelists. Greetings from CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and a warm greetings to our executive, Mr. Christian Asinet. Thank you, and happy Earth Day to everyone. We know that we are in a complex and difficult world, and we have environmental challenges that we are facing, and these challenges are accelerating. However, we are able to celebrate Earth Day with a vision of hope to build a world that is fairer. Also, we would like to say that our heart goes out to everyone as we remember the Pope. And he really thought about the environment as well. And let us remember that 10 years ago in 2015 for Earth Day, at a very special hearing, there was an encyclical that was published, and it was important to emphasize the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement. And it was mentioning that human beings and nature must not be led by greed nor exploitation, but they should be motivated by achieving harmony between humans and the earth, and we must conserve and respect the planet. These words of the Pope were resolute, and they ring true today as we try to achieve the sustainable world. Given the agenda that we have today, we are focusing on energy. We must celebrate the fact that Latin America and the Caribbean is the region that participates the most in clean renewables in the world. And this was achieved through years of work and development, and through opportunities to work with clean energy, wind energy, biomass, and even working with the different aspects in the region. So we want to look at the most important aspects that are happening in the world with Costa Rica, Paraguay, and as our colleague from JEF, the issue of Uruguay. They're talking about 90% of renewable energies are key, and they are building and creating public policies to come up with robust systems that are based on opportunities in the region. At the CAF, we have worked on our messaging. We are a region of solutions. a region that promotes solutions to this problem with energy. And as we address water, food, and biodiversity and the ecosystem, and we want to do this on a global scale. We also must understand that despite the problems that we have had around the world, we have examples of sustainable transformation that can be followed. We also have challenges, and we must continue to work together with each other. Namely, the main challenge is climate change. And how does climate change affect and the threats that it poses to our energy systems? We saw last year in Ecuador where that terrible drought affected the supply of energy in the country, and it was a clear threat to the production system and the energy supply system, and even in the availability that citizens were able to use that energy. So these climate threats, when it comes to droughts and hurricanes and extreme weather events, they threaten energy security of our countries. Therefore, it is necessary to move forward with resilience and adaptation. The example of Uruguay was just recently mentioned. This is also an example that we can follow through renewable energies, but also it is about taking action to create a robust system through the key resources to prepare for droughts and using wind energy, and to create these robust systems that will help us moving forward. Next, public policy is key to strengthen our abilities to transform and move forward with the energy transition. And in the long term, we must incorporate all the variables of these matters, that is energy security, the energy prices, as well as the environmental and social matters, as well as how we can overcome these challenges. Also, energy planning is helpful, and it will allow for a just transition, and it will lead to a reduction in emissions and energy security. And this will include and generate new technologies like geothermal technologies, green technologies, sustainable aviation, and we must understand that these mandates that came from the COP, the UNFCCC, are a key way for us to distance ourselves from fossil fuels and distance ourselves from harmful fuels, and we can use natural gases. Also, with the decisions from the COP, they talked about nuclear energy as an option to mitigate greenhouse gases and to have a just transition. We also have countries that are developing these technologies, and we want this technological development and this essential knowledge to be able to assist in this energy transition. Also, the role of critical minerals and strategic minerals. This is absolutely key when it comes to developing batteries and other connections on energy. The region is well positioned to participate in the planning and working in safe mining, sustainable mining, and even the possibility of providing added value from the region to increase the profitability from this safe mining. A major question, however, has to do with the producer countries using fossil fuels and what is the impact of this on the macroeconomic aspects of our countries as we fight against poverty. This is a matter that we have to keep working on, and we must be a part of this just transition and participate in the planning of this just transition. Also, we identified 4 actions that are absolutely key. How can we continue? Number 1, how can we continue promoting renewables and incorporating these different forces to create this energy mix that is resilient and something that we can provide in a resolute fashion that every territory has and needs. Also, energy resilience. We need to address the demand to be able to reduce energy consumption and the impact of energy. And an enormous step was taken, which was mentioned, and that has to do with the bids and the retrofitting of these matters. Also, transportation they are the major consumer of fossil fuels in the region, and renewable energies there can play a key role in decisions and including that into electric mobility, namely in those vehicles and ways of transportation that use these fuels. For example, public transportation, freight transportation, ferries, freight trains, etc. So they can use renewables, also everything that is related to individual mobility or individual electric mobility. Also, electric distribution throughout the region. So this is an enormous opportunity for the region, and this will create resilience as we face additional consumption at this time of energy consumption and production. Now, the role of financing is key. This financing has to be available to the countries, and the cost of the capital must be reduced to be able to generate these changes and transformations. The CAF has set aside $15 billion in its portfolio, and it is a tool that we have to make this financing available. And also, CAF is committed to be the green bank of the region, and we are committed to achieve 50% of ecological zones and investment in those ecological zones. And we were able to make great headway last year, and we will continue working in this direction. CAF is committed to being the green bank, and we will continue to work on these sovereign projects that are 100% green in the region, and this will ensure a reduction in the cost of additional capital, and we can speed up the investment and transition. Many of these investments in energy transition are projects that will generate stability in prices. And as part of this financial equation, the cost of capital is the most important. So the regional banks like the CAF and other banks, we play a role in providing this capital for the development in our countries. And finally, I would like to mention that CAF signed with the Green Fund for the Climate an agreement to implement a new specific program, and this will focus on transition, sustainable development, and it will include all of these components on electric transformation and including electric grids, and it will allow the islands, for example, to reduce their dependence on oil, which is a high cost for the islands, but it also has a negative impact for biodiversity and the ecosystem. So we have this example that we can put on the table. This is an example of excellency when it comes to transformation, clean energy, and helping the islands and the region and throughout the area. So at the CAF, we are honored to be invited to this meeting, and we are available to continue dialoguing with the countries in the region to have this just transformation, to reduce emissions, and once again, happy Mother Earth Day.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenzo, for sharing CAF's approach to supporting sustainable energy and for being a ready partner to so many of our member states and the OAS. Our next panelist is Mr. Wazim Mola, Fellow and lead of the Caribbean Initiative at the Adrian Ash Latin America Center of the Atlantic Council. Mr. Mola, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Happy Earth Day to all, standing on all protocols and formalities. Today is an important moment in the year. As we have heard from our previous panelists, from our distinguished speakers, climate change is worsening, energy insecurity and access to affordable energy is also on the decrease. Now is an opportune moment to bring more awareness to these challenges, but also talk about what are the opportunities. I would believe that there's a presentation that I will be using for all of you to follow along, but once again, thank you for the invitation. So, to begin, I think what's really important is, speaking about an energy transition, but also talking about what is an energy addition. When we talk about an energy transition, we often think about it as a sort of one-for-one swap. How do we incorporate a renewable energy while removing the use of a hydrocarbon, fossil fuels, etc.? This is not the immediate answer that will bring about energy security. And as you will see on the screen, I pulled this graph from the International Energy Agency. It shows the concentration of specific energies in certain countries. So you will see that many countries are very much reliant on hydroelectric power at a time when we're seeing increased drought and changing weather patterns around the region. Or with respect to Caribbean countries, you would see a heavy import on the usage of heavy fuel oil and other petroleum products. Now, why is energy addition important rather than just talking about energy transition? One is it creates a more diversified energy matrix, which allows you to bring on renewable energy power onto your grid while also using things like natural gas and other fossil fuels for baseload power. This is very important for Caribbean countries and other countries that are affected by climate-related natural disasters. You can use solar and wind and hydropower, but what happens when the sun is not shining? What happens when the wind is not blowing? What happens when you have drought? You need backup power to kick in to provide affordable power and resilient power to citizens. Second, it's a more pragmatic approach to undergoing a transition. As the Honorable Minister from the Bahamas has noted, there are several countries, not just in the Southern Caribbean, but across Latin America and the region that possess hydrocarbon resources. So there needs to be a method, a framework to be able to use those resources for your own development opportunities and challenges while gradually transitioning to more cleaner and renewable sources of power. And then finally, thinking about this pragmatic approach, it's incredibly important for underpinning economic competitiveness in the region for a number of different sectors. One is by being able to bring on reliable power and affordable power through a diverse energy matrix. You're able to increase the purchasing power of your citizens, which contribute to increased trade. Two, it helps lower the cost of manufacturing. There are several countries in the hemisphere that are looking to be nearshoring destinations. There are countries in the Caribbean that are looking to upscale their semiconductor operations, all of which are important for low-cost energy, but also energy security. And then finally, there is significant energy demand in critical sectors for many of these economies. For example, in the Caribbean, the tourism economy, significant usage of electricity production and consumption means that the product of the tourism product in the Caribbean is getting more costly the higher we have higher electricity prices in the region. So if we can create stability in this market, you can bring down the cost of the tourism product and increase revenues for many of the countries that are reliant on the tourism economy. So at the Atlantic Council, we have been looking at what does this both transition and addition look like across not the Caribbean, but also broader Latin America as well. And what we've done is we created what we believe a 5-step roadmap would look like that countries can undertake. And one thing I'll note is that different countries, as we go through this roadmap, this 5-step process, are at different levels of this, right? But thinking about from the beginning one is to improve national and regional level modeling and analysis. So one is you want to know what is the cost of the energy project, but not just in terms of revenue, but also cost to society. So a lot of energy modeling that undergoes right now does not always take into every cost. So for example, the true cost of energy, environmental factors, the demand side management, what battery storage options are available, all should go into the cost of the entire life cycle of the project to make a much more informed decision on investing in certain energy projects. Second is transitioning to a modernized grid, but also decentralizing generation. This is incredibly important for countries that are affected by natural disasters. If the majority of your power generation is focused on a grid that services, let's say, 75% of your population, if that grid goes down and they lose electricity, then there goes electricity access to 75% of your population. If there's an opportunity to now decentralize that so that you have 6 or 7 types of grids depending on the size of the country and the size of the population, it creates better resilience, especially during and post natural disasters. Alongside that is a more modernized grid. It's very difficult for grid operators to be able to switch from using natural gas or heavy fuel oil to solar to wind when you can use things like smart AI that can help you track things like weather patterns to know, for example, okay, from noon to 4 p.m., the sun will be shining at its highest intensity. Let's use solar for there. When people get home and switch on the lights and there's much more demand, let's switch over to natural gas as the sun starts to set. Incorporating these types of technologies can make it much more efficient and can also lower the cost of the life cycle of different projects. The third is the utility system. A lot of countries, there's many countries in the Caribbean that have state-owned utility systems. Now, these are important systems because the power, the revenue from purchasing power and selling to the consumer is used to invest in healthcare and education and other critical sectors that are important to the health and quality of life for their citizens. But what happens is that puts the burden on the utility to be able to innovate and find the capital and access the credit to be able to bring on new clean energy technology. So we have to find the middle ground. So one way to do that is to incorporate along the utility system, whether it's power generation or transmission or distribution, private sector and public-private partnerships to allow for that innovation, but in some smaller countries, particularly in the Eastern Caribbean, still have some sort of state ownership so that you don't break up your consumer base and inevitably don't lower the cost of energy. Because in some of the small markets, and this is the challenge, and this is why we talk about energy addition, not just transition, is that in small markets, clean power is not necessarily the cheapest power. Especially when you incorporate all those additional costs. And then the final 2 steps, and this is incredibly important, is building bankable projects. Unfortunately, investors will come into the region only if they know that they're going to get a real return on investment. And there's a number of different things, and this is especially where places like the OAS and the technical assistance that is provided in the past, and hopefully will continue to do in the future, can play a role, especially for those countries with not just small markets, but small population, the limited capacity. There are really simple things that can be done. One is financing of feasibility studies. One is trainings for public-private power purchasing agreements. One is supporting things like project design. One is just even offering, working with countries to apply for insurance coverage of assets. All of these things are small things that go a very long way. And what this takes us to finally is, how do you just make it easier to invest in energy projects in Latin America and the Caribbean. One thing that I am confident on is that all of these ideas, all of these opportunities, these concepts, they exist within the region. There are a number of regional institutions, for example, whether it's the IDB or the Caribbean Development Bank or CCRI or CARILEC, there are people working on this. The challenge is, how do you work with development partners and the private sector to just make it a little bit easier to invest in clean energy projects? And here, I think, as I quickly wrap up, is we are facing right now in the hemisphere, but particularly in the Caribbean as well, what I'm calling a silent crisis. We are seeing a rollback of foreign assistance, technical assistance, not just this year, but also in the previous years, from a number of development partners that have been focusing more on domestic production and domestic changes to their own economy at a time when development challenges across the hemisphere are increasing. What that means is that the in-region capacity needs to grow. And that needs to be done by working with development partners, for example, like the OAS, like the IDB, the World Bank, etc. Now, what does that mean for each actor? One, for governments, it's important to improve regulatory environments. It has to become an attractive regulatory environment to bring in investment. And there's a number of things that can be done by working with different law firms, the OAS, etc., to change and make sure that legislation, for example, is up to date. Things like bankruptcy codes, for example, will help attract more and more investment. Two, the private sector. The private sector has an incredible role to play, not only to bring in capital and access credit and provide things like equity injection into these projects to de-risk them, but it's unlocking the data. For example, in the Caribbean, we are a data poor region, and it's often said. However, there's large corporations in the region that have access to data and are using data to make decisions. How can the private sector, governments, and development partners work together to unlock that data to be used to help de-risk projects and bring in additional investment? Then finally, the role of multilateral institutions. I mentioned it already a little bit before, but there's a number of things that can be done at a technical level. As simple as organizing a training on how to design a power purchase agreement. That goes a long way when you're speaking with a developer or a foreign investor, whatever that might be. So finally, in close, I think that this moment for Earth Day is not only to raise awareness of the importance of energy transition, of adding renewable energies onto your grid, but it really needs to be a call to action. And there are forums that exist to continue the dialogue. And what I would say is that it's important that the dialogue must continue. It can't just stay in this room, but must have follow-up conversations. There are a number of forums that I've participated in personally at the OAS, for example, ECPA, the Energy Climate Partnership for the Americas, that has served as that dialogue for a number of years, and I would hope to say that that will be a forum that can continue in the future and many others like it. So once again, I want to thank you for the invitation and looking forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moeller, for sharing your valuable insights with us today. We will consider both sides of the energy transition, energy addition coin as we seek solutions to the energy crises in this shrinking fiscal space. Thank you. Our final panelist for this session is Mr. Mark Lambrides, Director of the Department of Sustainable Development of the OAS General Secretariat. Mr. Lambrides, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning and happy Earth Day to everyone. I would thank the Secretary General, Luis Almagro, for his outstanding leadership on topics of the environment and sustainable development over his last 10 years of the administration. Minister Halkitis, thank you for your leadership in bringing us together in Nassau, Bahamas in 2023 for the Ministerial on Sustainable Development and the outstanding outcomes of the Declaration of Nassau and its action plan. Chair Gilchrist, thank you for convening us today. Executive Secretary Osborne, representatives of member states, colleagues, and friends. I'm going to be very brief with my remarks today. As we've already heard from many of the experts on this topic, my role is to try to connect some of the challenges we've heard of the energy sector with the energy capabilities, the human capabilities and the mandates of the Organization of American States to help reshape how it is that we can go forward to support all of you in the hemisphere in a more sustainable, reliable, and secure energy future. I think we have a PowerPoint, and if you can go to the next slide real quickly. Just quickly remind us of the mandates that come out of the Nassau Declaration and the Climate Action Plan 2023-2030. We're organized around several key pillars of the sustainable development space, including climate change, integrated water resource management, disaster risk management, and as we are focused on today, the topic of sustainable energy. Next slide, please. The topic of sustainable energy has been a principal theme of our sustainable development actions for a couple of decades now. Coming out of the 5th Summit of the Americas in 2009, there was a call for countries to come together in an energy cooperation format, and that helped us form the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, or ECPA. Over the past 15 or so years, the General Secretariat, together with member states, have worked hard together to drive many elements of the sustainable energy transition, including a drive towards cleaner energy, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. We've supported the development of renewable energy and energy efficiency laws in multiple countries, provided extensive capacity building, supported project identification and the identification of financing resources for renewable energy and others. We've supported efforts of utilities to modernize, efforts for deregulation and the development of privatization efforts, the establishment of energy regulatory authorities such as the Eastern Caribbean Energy Regulatory Agency in the Eastern Caribbean. We've supported efforts at interconnection between countries of the power sector. There from the beginning, supporting efforts to build CIAPAC in Central America and analyze the potential for interconnection between Caribbean island nations and throughout South America. We supported efforts to extensively electrify the rural population, which now 98% of Latin America and the Caribbean population has access to modern energy services. And now we're at a turning point. Now we're at a point where we're asking, what is it that we can do to better serve member states in efforts to build a more secure, reliable, resilient, sustainable, clean energy future? I invite member states and our colleagues to consider these challenges and work with us as we work towards building and rebranding, relaunching the energy program of the organization's General Secretary of the Organization of American States, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lambridis, for your presentation and for outlining the potential role which the OAS can play in its assistance to member states in the energy space. I thank you, panelists, for your valuable input. We deeply appreciate your insights and look forward to our continued collaboration in implementing policies, strategies, and initiatives that can truly bring about change in the energy sector in the hemisphere. In the interest of time, I now invite member states to share their perspectives on policies, strategies, and programs that may contribute to expanding energy security, resilience, and sustainability. I kindly urge delegations to limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Our goal is to finish this meeting in good time so that our honorable guest, Minister Halkitis, can proceed to his next engagement. Seeing that there are no Further comments, I propose that CD expresses gratitude to our invited guests, experts, for their contributions, and that the Secretariat compile a summary of the cooperation and opportunities presented today. Delegations are reminded that these offers can be made available to others via the CorporateNet platform. I recognize St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Ambassador Luan Gilchrist, Permanent Representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Honorable Minister, Secretary General, Permanent Representatives, Executive Secretary of the Secretariat for Integral Development, alternates, guest speakers, staff at the Secretariat, good morning. Launched in 1970, Earth Day became a platform to raise global awareness on environmental issues, urging greater environmental protection and individual responsibility. By the 1980s, the themes shifted towards finding solutions and promoting renewable energy sources. At the turn of the millennium, themes promoting climate action, sustainable living, and investing in a sustainable future emerged. The themes, Chair, have evolved over the 50 years of recognition of Earth Day, reflecting an increased awareness and deeper commitment to protecting our planet. Chair, the concept of energy security is one that we must maintain in our dialogue, with the ultimate objective of finding pathways to concrete, specific action aimed at promoting energy security. Energy security means energy access, affordable energy, a stable energy supply during power outages, and being able to recover rapidly from disruptions. Energy security means having electricity to power your refrigerator, air conditioning units, TVs, laptops, and smartphones, even electric vehicles. It means having the assurance that your daily routines and daily lives will be uninterrupted. Energy security means having constant power in schools, hospitals, prisons, and in public spaces, including on the streets, to increase personal safety, survival, and ensure continuity in essential and life-saving activities. In spite of its essential nature, the global energy supply is under threat. The threats range from the naturally declining global oil reserves to the negative effects of continued conflict in some major oil-producing states. Consequently, it is urgent for us to explore clean, safe, and affordable alternative sources. Mindful of each country's vulnerabilities, geopolitical position, economic growth, and its own path to development, each member state present here today has a responsibility to the planet and its people to implement policies and practices aimed at advancing energy security. Every economy is in pain. Every economy feels pain. Chair, roughly 7 million gallons of diesel are consumed annually to generate power in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Notwithstanding, the government is committed to reducing its carbon footprint and its dependence on fossil fuels for energy in the interests of the consumers and the planet. Accordingly, through its energy plan in partnership with the private sector, the government is pursuing geothermal, solar, and hydro initiatives, as well as energy-saving solutions such as LED lights and energy-saving light bulbs. In furtherance of this commitment, the National Electrical Company has increased investment in and expenditure on solar photovoltaic and battery installations, advanced metering infrastructure, and line operating frequency. Chair, the 22nd of April, Earth Day, is a stark reminder of the imperative to commit ourselves to properly managing our natural resources. We have the tools, we have the expertise. Let us arm ourselves with the will to do so. My delegation supports the OAS General Secretariat's efforts to seek funding for future energy programming following the end of external funding for support of the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA. Chair, Let us remind ourselves that we did commit to limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Everywhere, all around us are the signs. More frequent and intense hurricanes, heat waves, sea level rise, flooding, wildfires, that this commitment needs to be transformed into action if we are to prevent the total degradation of our environment and the destruction of our beloved planet Earth. Chair, until outer space becomes fully habitable, or until human beings evolve to inhabit outer space, or until we have an alternative space which can sustain human life as we know and want it, we must enable this planet Earth, our Mother Earth, to continue to sustain our lives. We must preserve and protect Mother Earth. Let us therefore advance together by phasing out fossil fuels and by honoring our commitments to the Earth. Save the planet, save lives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I now offer the floor to Costa Rica.
Chair, Ambassador Gilchrist, Minister Michael Halkitis, Economic Minister of the Bahamas, thank you for being here with us. Permanent representatives, Secretary General, it is an honor to be at this important commemoration of Earth Day. This is a date that invites us to reflect on the urgency of taking collective action to protect our planet. We also thank our panelists for their presentations. Chair, in the memory of Pope Francis, we stood for a moment, and this really moved us. And so we should think about what he called upon us to do. The encyclical Laudato Si was an ethical and spiritual milestone in the fight against the degradation of the environment, and it was connecting the environment with the most vulnerable. And the issue of responding to the transition energy transition, in the Americas. I want to mention three important things with respect to secure, resilient, and sustainable energy systems. Access to clean energy is fundamental in my country in order to have sustainable development and inclusion. To make progress in security, in resilience, and sustainability of energy systems can help us in other areas, climate change, the fight against that, and we have underscored in different fora that we need to have in our climate and energy policies a gender perspective. We have decided to have a developmental policy which also balances other factors. Based on the report from CAF, which was mentioned by Mr. Lorenzo in his intervention, we lead in the renewable energy sector because we have a clean grid and we have a very high residential electrification in the zone. We have 70% in our rural areas. We continue to advance towards a low carbon economy. In February of this year, we launched our biomethane strategy within our decarbonization strategy. This allows us to have a just energy transition with frameworks which are leading to sustainable development, especially with inclusion of vulnerable populations and women. Secondly, I want to mention that Costa Rica believes that together we need to take action and also to elevate our ambition. Without ambition, we will never be able to have the economic development that our societies demand. This needs to be reflected in our NDCs. And this needs to be clearly communicated to our people as well as to the international community. We cannot allow temperatures to continue to go beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade. So states need to redouble their efforts in energy policies, which include resilience, technological innovation, and social inclusion with a gender perspective. No country can deal with this climate crisis by itself. Investment in clean energy can lead to green jobs, a better economy, and can ensure a future for all of us. We also believe it is fundamental to have financial mechanisms which advance the energy transition. We need climate financing that is effective and appropriate to be able to have electrification of transportation, decarbonization of industry, and also to include the private sector to offer financing. This can allow us to triple what we're doing. We can also do away with inefficient subsidies for fossil fuels. This is especially true in medium income countries. Cooperation with multilateral institutions can give opportunities to scale up resilient, sustainable projects. Finally, Chair, in the framework of Earth Day, my delegation would also like to underscore the importance of the ocean as a source of biodiversity, life, food, employment, and climate regulation. Let us recall that on June 8, we will have the third conference of the UN on the oceans, UNOC3, in Nice. We are co-sponsoring this with France, and it will be a key opportunity to renew our commitment to the sustainable governance of our oceans. And I want to finalize my intervention by saying we are still able to be ambitious, to act in solidarity, and have a long-term strategy. We can leave our mark for future generations. To protect Earth is not just our environmental duty. It is a promise for justice, hope, and all of humanity. Thank you, Chair, and happy Earth Day to you.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. I now offer the floor to the Dominican Republic.
Greetings. We commend the chairmanship of this Council for commemorating International Earth Day. We also commend the panelists for your valuable presentations. We also would like to thank Mr. Michael Alquides, Minister of Economic Affairs for the Bahamas. Madam Chair, as the host country for the 10th Summit of the Americas, we would like to say to heads of state and governments is that energy security is absolutely key, and together with citizen security and food security and water security, these are current challenges for our region. We have identified that it is important to focus on these securities to bolster efforts geared towards action. That is why we believe that is important that the OAS, through its leadership and with the working group on summits, along with the conceptual note that was published last February under the slogan, Building a Safe, Prosperous, and Sustainable Hemisphere, we believe that it's important to receive contributions from other organizations that are part of this initiative. Energy security is a strategic aspect for us. Our region has notable natural resources, including oil, natural gas, and renewable energy sources. This positions us as a key actor in global energy. Also, Latin America is host to 2/3 of the global reserves of lithium and copper. These are essential minerals for industry and clean technology, namely in the areas of energy and sustainable mobility. Notwithstanding this Abundance of resources comes with major challenges. That is diversifying our energy mix, fostering investment in clean energies, and ensuring equitable and sustainable access to this energy. These are priorities and they require a comprehensive and coordinated approach. While this is fundamental and we must coordinate public policies that include energy and that are focused on the hemisphere and climate change and resilience, social justice and sustainable development, we must also think about our community. And when it comes to our plans for 2023-2025, we are focused on renewables and using natural resources, managing water in a sustainable fashion, and working on the impacts of climate change. Therefore, we have made great steps to strengthen our wind and solar energy, and we're working on this energy transition. In the Caribbean, the Dominican Republic is the country that has transformed its energy mix the most. We seek this year to hope that this transition will allow us to achieve our goal of 25% of this clean renewable generation. Chair, we are pleased to see the regional collaboration to strengthen our economies and to create jobs and to improve the quality of life of our citizens, to create policies towards energy transition in a comprehensive fashion. In this regard, we would like to recall that as part of the 6th ministerial meeting of the Energy Alliance and the Climate of the Americas held in Punta Cana last year, our Minister of Energy focused on this energy transition and reaffirmed our commitment to a future that is sustained by clean and green energy. We hope that this forum will continue to be a multilateral platform that promotes hemispheric dialogue, energy governance, and the exchange of best practices. We will continue working hand in hand to strengthen hemispheric alliances that will ensure that the citizens of the Americas will have this security and prosperity. Happy Mother Earth Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominican Republic. I now offer the floor to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Ambassador Luan Gilchrist. Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro. Minister of Economic Development, Economic Affairs of the Bahamas, and Chair of the Inter-American Committee for Sustainable Development, Honorable Michael Halkitis. Distinguished panelists, permanent representatives and alternates, ladies and gentlemen, good day. The delegation of Trinidad and Tobago welcomes this opportunity to commemorate Earth Day 2025 here at the OAS under the theme, Responding to the Critical Energy Transition Priorities in the Americas, Energy Security, Resilience, and Sustainability. We express our appreciation to you for convening this meeting and thank the distinguished speakers and panelists who have underscored the urgency of the environmental challenges confronting our planet and offered some innovative ways to address them. For Trinidad and Tobago, a nation historically reliant on fossil fuels, this theme resonates deeply as we embark on a transformative journey toward a sustainable energy future. Further, as a small island developing state, energy security means not only ensuring stable power supplies, but doing so in a way that is climate resilient and socially inclusive. We see regional collaboration, including interconnection, knowledge exchange, and cooperative investment as critical to this mission. We strongly support the OAS-led platforms like the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas initiatives and urge their revitalization to deliver technical assistance, facilitate regional energy integration, and champion innovation, particularly for countries with geographic or economic vulnerabilities. At the national level, Trinidad and Tobago has taken important steps, including we have passed feed-in tariff regulations to encourage private sector participation in renewable energy generation. Our Vision 2030 strategy and national determined contributions under the Paris Agreement outline our commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 15% in the power generation sector. We have also launched the Brechin Castle and Orange Grove solar parks, bringing 112 megawatts of solar capacity online, the largest solar initiative in the English-speaking Caribbean. However, as noted by other speakers today, financing is critical and remains a challenge. The OAS can play a vital role in de-risking clean energy investments, supporting blended finance models, and acting as a bridge between governments, donors, and the private sector. Our delegation proposed that the OAS energy agenda prioritize 1. Capacity building for energy transition planning in SIDS and vulnerable economies. 2. Support for critical infrastructure resilience, including decentralized grids and storage. 3. Technical cooperation in developing green hydrogen and offshore wind future-facing energy strategies suited to our regional context. And 4. Policy harmonization across member states to streamline investments and foster a regional clean energy market. Chair, as we reflect on 55 years of Earth Day, we recognize that our power lies not only in megawatts, but in our unity and collaborative action. Let us work together as sovereign states, as regional partners, and as stewards of this hemisphere to accelerate the transition to a more secure, resilient, and sustainable energy future. Trinidad and Tobago stands ready to collaborate in this critical endeavor, because in protecting our planet, we protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. I now offer the floor to Ecuador.
Permanent representatives, alternate representatives, panelists, Ecuador commends the panelists for their statements, and we would like to take this opportunity to highlight the importance of celebrating Earth Day. Fighting against climate change and protecting our ecosystems are a strategic priority. That is why several institutions in Ecuador, including the Ministry of Environment, Water and Environmental Transition, and the Ministry of Mining, are coming up with policies and programs that are focused on environmental sustainability. And they are working in a coordinated fashion throughout different sectors. It should be noted that the Ecuadorian forest represent close to 51% of our national territory, and they are the host to the largest amount of biodiversity on the planet. These ecosystems are not only fundamental for conserving endemic species, but also they play a key role as a carbon sinks. Also, Ecuador has adopted a strategy that is low in carbon, and through its nationally determined contributions, the country has assumed concrete proposals to try to strengthen our abilities and help vulnerable communities and protect our water resources and promote an energy transition that is just and inclusive. Ecuador is facing major climate challenges, as was mentioned by the CAF, and they directly impact our economy, such as extreme droughts, forest fires, and floods. That is why working with our institutions to come up with the National Adaptation Plan, this is crucial to ensure a sustainable future for our populations, ecosystems, and the infrastructure in our country. That is why we are promoting the REDS, which is a specialized program that will address this matter. And also we are focused on bilateral financial flows, and the current financial flows that are bilateral and multilateral that were helping ecological zones, they need to be in line with climate change. In Ecuador, we are working with UNDP to strengthen our capacities to generate valuable macroeconomic and fiscal and budgetary information. Also, it's important to highlight the efforts to use renewables and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as we fight against climate change. That is why we are promoting technological investment and strengthening our abilities and our regional efforts. We believe that exchanging experiences and best practices will allow us to tackle these climate challenges in our region. We reaffirm our commitment to the energy transition that is just, resilient, and sustainable. We are convinced that only through regional cooperation will we be able to ensure energy transition across nations and the well-being of future generations in the Americas. Thank you and happy International Earth Day.
Thank you very much, Ecuador, and now offer the floor to Panama.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of Panama, please allow me to thank Honorable Michael Halkitis from the Bahamas. And also, we take this opportunity to commend the panelists for their valuable presentations. Also, to the head of this council for including this matter on the agenda as we celebrate the International Day of Mother Earth under the goal of responses to our planet, making it resilient and sustainable. Today, we are celebrating not just the effort from our countries, but our environment and our joint responsibility to accelerate this energy transition so that it's clean and sustainable. In Panama, under the direction of our president, Mr. Molina, sustainable development and the protection of our natural resources are absolutely key. And they are two sides of the same coin. It is about ensuring prosperity, dignity, and environmental justice for present and future generations. Our country is known for its unique biodiversity, and it has made steps to move forward in that direction. We have more than 870 different types of species in our forest. Also, Panama is working to protect its maritime space. And this is an exclusive economic zone, and this is a goal that we have for 2030. However, we are aware of the major challenges that we face. The impact of irregular migration in our region through the Darien Gap is not only a humanitarian crisis, but it is affecting our ecosystems. As the president of our country mentioned, protecting our biodiversity is absolutely key, and we cannot endanger this. We need to make sure that we have effective governance in this area. Therefore, we support the hemispheric efforts to bolster resilience on energy and to promote energy efficiency. We believe that the energy transition is important to make sure that it's fair and just between our states. Universal access to clean energies that are safe and affordable is key to fight against poverty and to foster social resilience. That is why we believe it is absolutely key, the following: to strengthen regional alliances, to create technological alliances, and share best practices. Also, we have to spearhead green financing, public and private. That's why we recognize the strategic role of critical minerals for the energy transition, and we must exploit this in a sustainable and responsible fashion. So we are promoting the regional and energy connection between our country and the Caribbean to maintain sustainability. Panama is advocating for a pragmatic and far-reaching approach when it comes to the well-being of people and the health of our planet. That is why we are calling on renewing our multilateral approaches at this historic moment. Our power resides in our collective ability to transform our challenges into opportunities, and we must see that this moment is a chance to leverage our resources. Madam Chair, on this day, International Earth Day, we must understand that we're not the owner of the planet, but we're the custodians, the stewards of the planet. So we must do this through solidarity, and only through spirit of cooperation and mutual cooperation will we be able to turn these energy challenges into historic opportunities. Let us walk together down this path so that we can become more resilient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Panama. I now offer the floor to Guatemala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As one of the most diverse countries in the world, we would like to say that this International Earth Day is of the utmost importance for us as we protect our ecosystem and biodiversity. Therefore, we have a pluricultural and pluriethnic approach, including the indigenous communities, because they have a close connection with the ecosystem and Mother Earth. The climate crisis is not about the future, it's about now. So we are facing forest fires and other climate challenges. And we are experiencing an increase in extreme climate events. We have had more than 1,000 cases of dengue and other matters as a result of these crises. So the response from Guatemala is to come up with solutions that have a coordinated approach. Our National Council on Climate Change is linked to all sectors, public, private sector, academia, etc. We have different boards and experts working on different areas as well. And we have more than $700 million focused on this effort to protect our protected areas. We have launched in 2024 our first effort on sovereign bonds, and that was about $800 million. In 2024, we allocated $5.5 million to a national climate fund for adaptation and mitigation. And between 2020 and 2024, we have reduced CO2 emissions through the implementation of reforestation projects. And this benefits the region and the area. However, climate financing continues to be a critical barrier. So we must know that when it comes to mitigation in the region, we are facing exceptionally high levels when it comes to mitigation. So we are working to meet our financial goals and to operationalize our efforts on adaptation, and to do this through shared but differentiated responsibility. Madam Chair, as we have heard today from Honorable Michael Alquides and the distinguished panelists, a key element of climate change is ensuring a clean transition with renewable energies, and we need accessible and diversified energies, and it's important to move forward in this direction. And as we face major challenges, we nonetheless have made wonderful progress. We are working on an electrification project with solar energy that will benefit around 7 million families. We are working on our electricity grid, despite the challenges caused by the excessive rains as a result of climate change. So 14% of the annual electricity in the region is key for harvest. So we hope that by 2026, we will be able to use 10% of the ethanol for this transition. In the hemisphere, it's important to say that our region represents more than 40% of global biodiversity and a third of clean water on the planet. This indicates that we have a major responsibility. That's why we reiterate our goal to financing clean energy and we want to operationalize our efforts for resilience. That's why we also have a 2023-2030 action plan. So we reiterate our commitment to work with countries throughout the region, particularly as COP30 in Brazil is approaching. So we are focusing on a sustainable energy transition that will have clear financing. Dear colleagues, we are at a critical moment when it comes to climate change. So through political will, solidarity, and science, we can overcome these challenges. We are prepared to protect the planet for the current and future generations to ensure a sustainable energy transition and development and protect our biological richness and our nature. Thank you very much.
Guatemala, I now offer the floor to Colombia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colombia commends the convening of this meeting at the Inter-American Council for Integral Development to commemorate Mother Earth Day. We hope that this opportunity will allow us to lay the groundwork to strengthen our security and energy resilience in our countries in line with the international commitments on climate change, biodiversity, and sustainable development. Madam Chair, our region is facing a crossroads. We are focusing on moving forward with clean energy in line with the Paris Agreement. The growing climate events, and as we move away from fossil fuels and the lack of financing, requires a strategic approach that is coordinated and multilateral. Colombia is a mega diverse country, but it is vulnerable to climate change. And this is a paradox for us. We contribute only 1.6% to greenhouse gas emissions, but we are one of the countries that is the most exposed to the impacts of climate change. Despite this, we have one of the most ambitious climate goals in the region. We want to reduce our emissions by 51% by 2030 and achieve net carbon by 2050. As was mentioned in our nationally determined contributions, over the long term, this is absolutely key. To achieve this goal, we are working on 3 transitions at the same time. The first is the energy transition by diversifying our energy mix. The second transition is the production transition that is focusing on reindustrialization with added value and clean energy. And finally, the transition to a decarbonized economy that is fiscally inclusive and responsible. To make these transitions viable and to make them flexible and predictable, that's absolutely key. The elevated cost of these efforts in Colombia are going to limit some of our efforts. That's why we have to prioritize the allocation of resources and to reform our multilateral financing when it comes to debt. The National Development Plan 2022-2026 in Colombia establishes a roadmap that is clear for just energy transition that includes social justice, that is efficient and respects nature. This means expanding non-conventional resources of renewables like solar and wind and geothermal, biomass energy, and we need to promote and distribute and include community participation in the region. Colombia believes that the OAS can play a key role in facilitating the establishing of key international alliances and regional alliances when it comes to energy integration and the transfer of technology and public-private coordination, as well as focusing on Latin American efforts in the electric sphere. This is an opportunity to decarbonize our continent.
Additionally, allow me to underscore that green hydrogen is an opportunity for the region. Its potential as an energy vector need international certification framework and technical support. And that is where this organization can play a coordination and diplomatic role. Chair, allow me to conclude highlighting that the just energy transition cannot be disassociated from gender equity and human rights. Women in rural areas and ethnic populations must lead this transition. The access to green employment, the use of new technology, and also participation in the benefits of this. We think that we must have ethnic and territorial as well as gender equity perspectives in these projects. We need to go from a diversified, or rather extractive economy to a diversified economy. We need technology and we need different development models, and we need to have the backing of the international financial institutions, and we need to actually help countries in development more now than ever. Our hemisphere needs to advance in this agenda, and Colombia is ready to cooperate with other member states so that our region is a reference point for everyone with respect to the energy transition. Thank you.
Very much, Colombia. I now offer the floor to Mexico.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mexico is so happy to celebrate the 55th day of our planet, and we are happy to be able to reflect on this here at CD. This is a space where we can devote ourselves to take action to protect our planet, and also are here to advance the just energy transition. We recognize everyone's rights to a clean earth. And also, we would like to promote national and international instruments to this end. Mexico is going towards clean energy, and we have made reforms so we can have a social inclusion and a just energy transition. Sustainable development and moving forward in the transition is a strategic goal of our development plan from 2025-2030, which tries to ensure access to clean energy for marginalized communities, as well as reduce pollution and also comply with clean energy objectives, as well as our international obligation to fight against climate change. The National Energy Plan includes new investments in generation transmission of energy, as well as an ambitious energy transition plan towards clean energy. The National Electric System has 50 projects it's working on to be able to give additional megawatts by 2030 with an investment of $22.3 billion. We propose in 4 years to be able to comply with our objective of 99% coverage of electrification in Mexico. Last March, a decree was published that established a new energy framework for the nation. 8 new laws were issued, as well as ordinances to lead the state in planning, regulating, and operating the electric system. We have a law on this transition, which not only provides for sustainable energy, but also provides for sovereignty and energy security. It affirms the function and social responsibility of our company Pemex and also the National Electricity Company and ensure sustainability. It is legislation which aims to reduce dependency on fossil fuels in order to have sufficient and reliable energy sources that are clean. And since 2020, we have been focused on renewable energy. We want to triple our capacity to 11 megawatts, and also we want to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. We recognize that climate change is one of the most important challenges we are facing, and we believe that we must be ambitious and socially responsible in our objectives, and we must comply with international commitments that have been adopted based on common but differentiated responsibilities in keeping with the Paris Agreement. During the COP, which took place in 2024, Mexico reiterated its commitment to fight the increase in temperatures to keep it to 1.5 degrees centigrade, and also to reduce greenhouse gases by 30% by 2030 using its own resources. We reiterate that it is important to have mitigation and adaptation steps taken. We need to guarantee financial flows for countries in development and also to be able to provide for loss and damages. With respect to financing, looking towards 2030, Mexico insists that we must go beyond to what we have so far, and we need to have $1.1 billion a year. As chair of the American Agency for Energy Transition, we are promoting this plan that came out of our high authorities, which is a call for action to fight climate change and to give opportunities for regional cooperation and leverage additional funds and programs in the Americas in keeping with the Declaration of Nassau and its action plan. Chair, Mexico reiterates its commitment to fight climate change and environmental justice with shared responsibility, working through multilateral instruments for effective financing and also to advance the energy transition. The 30th conference on climate change, which will take place in Belén de Pará, is an opportunity to undertake commitment so we can have new international financing and more ambitious NDCs, as well as increase international cooperation to unleash a change in our development model based on people's and the planet's well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mexico. I take this opportunity to remind delegations that the time limit is 5 minutes, and it is especially crucial today as we have Minister Halkitis, who has another engagement, a pressing engagement, starting at noon. I urge you, therefore, to be mindful of the length of your presentations. Thank you very much. I now offer the floor to Uruguay.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that our government and people are very saddened by the passing of Pope Francis. He was a messenger of peace and dialogue and thought about social justice, how to take care of the environment, a compassionate man, closest to those who are most vulnerable. Having stated this, we want to say that it's a pleasure for the delegation of Uruguay to take the floor on the celebration of Earth Day, its 55th celebration. And the theme that brings us here is to reflect on our role here on the planet to transform our future. From Uruguay, we understand that the energy transition is a way to have sustainable development. This means to go towards a cleaner energy grids, go towards energy justice, and have a better home for all. Our policy, as already mentioned here, has been recognized internationally as sustainable. More than 97% of our electricity comes from renewable sources, wind, geothermal, biomass. This is a coherent strategy based on public-private partnerships. At the same time, Uruguay is investing in green hydrogen, promoting electric mobility, and we are also doing this in many sectors. At a regional level, Uruguay is participating in hemispheric fora. We think it is very important that the OAS promotes ECPA, and we believe that its renewal must be able to deal with energy security, resilience to natural disasters, innovation, and technology as its goals. Climate change has no borders. So when we talk about an energy transition, we're talking about adaptation, social inclusion, and protection of biodiversity. Uruguay is an active participation in this. We have plans for infrastructure, our coast, and our agricultural sector. We also have circular economy policies, conservation of water, and others. Initiatives like Plantatom Uruguay, the national law on waste, or our long-term climate change adaptation plan means that we have social, energy, and other policies all together. This focus is not just limited to the government. We recognize the important role of civil society, especially the academic sector. The ecological transition is only possible if everyone participates. The current context means that we are facing many challenges. To strengthen our energy security is important. We cannot deteriorate our environment to reach our energy goals. We must respect biodiversity and the rights of communities. From Uruguay, we know that an energy agenda that moves forward means investing in clean energy. We need frameworks for sustainable development. We need technical know-how and exchange of knowledge, and this needs to be part of our collective security. We believe that as a region, we have the capacity, experience, and commitment to be able to do this. Today, the day of Mother Earth means we must take care of our collective home. It is a shared responsibility, and it is sine qua non for the future of our planet and our peoples. We want a just and sustainable energy transition, one that leaves no one behind, and one that honors our Mother Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uruguay. I now offer the floor to Brazil.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Chair. Brazil is happy to have this opportunity to talk about such an important issue. Chair, we want to thank Minister Hakiris and also all panelists here. Brazil knows that energy systems are important for development and in order to be able to have economic and social development. We have clean and renewable energy sources that we want to harness for our development. We are also using these sources for the development of other sectors and to decarbonize our economy. Chair, we need to prioritize the energy transition in regional and sub-regional efforts. Brazil is working on this, and we believe we can contribute to the electrification of our region based on clean energy sources. We have been promoting different initiatives. Last year, Brazil began to support the development of clean and renewable energies. We have been promoting the energy transition in order to be less dependent on fossil fuels. We have well-defined objectives in this sense. We need financial flows. We need to share risks. We need to take steps in order to have more financial flows. This financing should be used to be able to improve the energy grid. By developing this sector, we can have more energy efficiency. Multilateral cooperation is important, and we need to have the OAS involved. They can help us by spreading good practices. And Chair, it is important that we work with the OAS so that we can create public policies and also have financial and technical assistance. We also can explore the possibilities of partnerships through the OAS. We want to be able to implement projects through ECPA. Thank you very much.
For the floor to Chile.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings, and greetings to the Minister from the Bahamas, permanent representatives, alternate representatives, distinguished panelists. Happy Earth Day. We wanted to begin by thank you for convening this meeting to commemorate this International Earth Day, which invites us to act urgently given the environmental challenges we are facing as a people and as a region. We'd like to thank the Executive Secretariat of CD and its team for preparing this meeting. For Chile, protecting our planet is a national priority and an international obligation, which is expressed through our policies in our just energy transition policies and our active participation in different international fora like the OAS. What we see is that we express this in every fora. We have a conviction, and we also would like to greet the representatives of the General Secretariat of the OAS, the IDB, CAF, and others. We believe that these different organizations support us and help us advance in an energy transition. In particular, we would like to talk about different advances. The decarbonization of our electric grid in 2023, more than 30% of our energy sources were from renewable sources, and we want to close all of our coal-burning plants by 2040 or before. We have closed 11, and we are going to progressively close the others. We have a national policy on green hydrogen. We renewed that in 2024. Chile is a leader in clean energy sources, especially in Antofagasta and other regions. We are investing millions in these sectors. This gives rise to green jobs and knowledge transfer. This is very important in these sectors. We have the framework law on energy, which has been valid since 2022. This establishes establishes Chile as a net zero nation, or that's an objective we have. We are including all sectors and all territories. Fourth, ecological justice. We have the Escazú agreement that we signed. This shows that we believe in ecological justice and we want our people to be involved in decision making in this sense. The energy transition with equity. In the north of our country, indigenous peoples are working on solar projects. And in the south, we are doing the same. We have different programs like solar houses, etc. This is helping to create SMEs that put on solar panels. But we can only reach our potential if we have effective regional cooperation. So we support inter-American efforts that lead to sustainable energy systems and the reform of an agenda based on clean energy, and which can help us to protect our energy systems and make them more resilient to natural disasters. We need to promote regional energy transitions based on security and equal access, support green infrastructure in keeping with our NDCs and the 2030 goals. We believe there is common ground. Having heard other delegations that spoke before me, we believe that we can work together through the technical secretariat and the executive secretariat, in addition to the role of the multilateral banks. We need to have more just and equitable finance, such as the Green Climate Fund and the green bonds that were issued by Chile, one of the first countries to do so. This means we can have sustainable green financing. The ecological transition must be equitable and just. Our experience shows that the role of women, rural communities, indigenous peoples is key. The development of our energy infrastructure must go hand in hand with the creation of capacity and green jobs. For the indigenous peoples of Chile, especially Aymara and Mapuche, Mother Earth is a venerated goddess, and they have a spiritual connection with the planet. They are inspired by ancestral knowledge. On Earth Day today, Chile reiterates its commitment to a just and green transition. As a country, will continue to work with other member states, multilateral organizations, and civil society to have a low-carbon environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chile. I now offer the floor to Barbados.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and esteemed panelists. The state of the planet is broken, and it needs a bailout. And repairing our relationship with Mother Earth is therefore of utmost importance. We must act, and act now. Humanity, now more than ever, must stop acting like that delinquent child. We must restore harmony with nature and embrace the ethos of sustainable consumption and production. To do this, Madam Chair, we must slam the brakes on biodiversity loss, put a stop to pollution, and slash greenhouse gas emissions. It means supporting indigenous people, local communities, and others being hit hardest by pollution, climate, and biodiversity crises. It means delivering for countries on the front line of the climate crisis and swiftly mobilizing the finance and support countries' needs to act to protect nature and promote sustainable development. Our actions have undoubtedly brought harm to the natural world. We know Mother Earth is sick. We know it runs a fever. And we know it is overheating. We know her symptoms, and we know the solutions. Getting on the road to recovery is therefore critical. My country has led on this through the Bridgestone Initiative, a collective roadmap to get Mother Earth back on her feet again. Action on adaptation is vital. Mother Earth needs you. Mother Earth needs me. We need it. So let us save it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Barbados. I now offer the floor to Peru.
Thank you very much, Chair. Allow me to express our commitment to the spirit of what brings us today here, a resilient and sustainable and just energy transition in the framework of the commemoration of Earth Day. The energy transition is not a technical challenge. Rather, it is an historical challenge to reform our economy so they're cleaner. In line with that, we have taken on ambition, challenges, and objectives. In keeping with our policies, we have declared a national climate emergency, and we want to reduce by 40% our GHG emissions by 2030. One of the key pillars of our strategy is to advance in renewable and non-conventional energy sources in our electric grid, to have 20% of energy use that is clean by 2030. And based on our decrees, we have a robust framework so we can use solar, wind-driven, biomass, and geothermal energy sources. In this context, I want to highlight the potential of Peru to produce green hydrogen because we have solar and wind energy sources. We have pioneer legislation, a law that promotes development in all stages from production to distribution and final use. For example, through this, we are looking not only to diversify our energy matrix and also reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, but also to position Peru as an exporter of clean energy on an international level. With respect to resilience and security, we have also shored up our regulatory framework. We are now more competitive, efficient, and less vulnerable to the volatility of prices. This allows us to have more clean energy sources in our different matrices. As a region, we also face challenges, but we have collective potential. We are convinced that the energy integration at a regional level can and should be a strategic instrument to advance a just energy transition in the Americas. Our National Energy Policy 2010-2040 in Peru also contemplates this, looking towards self-sufficiency, efficiency in the use of energy, a sustainable energy supply, and a clean energy source. This is not just a path towards decarbonization in the Americas. It is a way to have greater integration, inclusion, and sustainable development. On Earth Day today, we reaffirm our willingness to work with all member states of the OAS on a common energy agenda that is aimed at the well-being of our peoples and planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. I now offer the floor to Guyana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Guyana delegation extends its gratitude to you and the Secretariat for Integral Development for facilitating today's discussion in observance of Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. We also acknowledge and thank the Honorable Minister of the Bahamas and Chair of the Inter-American Committee for Sustainable Development, the Secretary General of the OAS, and the panelists for their presentations. Chair, there is an onus, an expectation on our states individually and collectively to deliver steadily improving prosperity to our peoples. Doing so requires focused and concerted action that incorporates avenues for energy security, resilience, sustainability, and affordability, even as we move away from the use of fossil fuels. We must keep before ourselves and people the benefits of mitigating and minimizing the continued effects of climate change. Integral to the fight against climate change and the quest for sustainability and regional stability and security is the transformation of the energy sectors across the hemisphere. As there is no one-size-fits-all approach, developing countries, and in particular small island developing and low-lying coastal states, face significant challenges in planning for and implementing their specific energy transitions. Chair, the high costs associated with replacing fossil fuel infrastructure with those applicable to renewable energy remain a heavy financial challenge, with energy security models significantly affected by the use of the economic measurement of gross domestic product per capita in graduating small states from concessional financing. This has posed notable challenges for Guyana in the facilitation of access to financing for infrastructural development and institutional capacity building, and meeting commitments under the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs 2030, and the Paris Agreement. Chair, Guyana, a new producer of fossil fuels, oil, remains cognizant of its responsibilities, and even with discovered oil reserves and oil production, is focused on the progressive expansion of renewable energy, its incorporation into the national energy mix, and on ensuring regional energy security to drive productivity, economic growth, and development under the umbrella of our low-carbon development strategy 2030. Chair, Guyana is hurrying in using its income from oil to enable living well after oil, after the loss of income from oil. Thus, Chair, the transition in Guyana includes high rates of investment in our country and people for greatly improved economic and social livelihood. And this includes large investments in infrastructure, education and health, leisure and wellness. Chair, the energy transmission is capital intensive, as we have said, and in 2021, Guyana required at least US $1.1 billion to fund a range of ongoing energy projects intended to add about 500 megawatts of renewable generation capacity to the country's electricity mix. The projects included the modernization of the electric grid, 300 megawatts of lower impacting methane development, hydropower generation, PV solar home systems in the sparsely populated hinterland, 100 megawatts of PV generation for the utility, and the inclusion of feed-in rooftop solar photovoltaic power. This year, the government of Guyana budgeted approximately US $423 million to expand the renewable energy sector with a view to improving reliability and energy efficiency, reducing the cost of electricity, and expanding coverage in interior locations. These projects are being funded through a combination of government investments, international partnerships, and a sustainable financing approach, leveraging oil revenues and other natural resources. It is clear that states, alongside partners, need to collaborate more closely on technical assistance, financing, and resource acquisition. The OAS has been instrumental in this process, and it is our hope to see a continuation of the critical work that was undertaken. Guyana, to the best of its ability, offers its support for the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan 2030 and related endeavors. In closing, Madam Chair, my delegation believes that our states are all aware of our common but differentiated responsibilities. The theme for this year's Earth Day is another call for action at the individual, community, state, regional, and global levels. Despite the challenges, we must remain focused, optimistic, and work together to make positive changes and bring sustainable development and prosperity to our peoples and communities. Chair, I thank you.
Thank you, Guyana. I now offer the floor to El Salvador.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. El Salvador joins you in celebrating the International Earth Day under the slogan, Our Power, Our Planet. This is absolutely key for sustainable development and resilience in our region. In Central America, particularly in my country, greenhouse gases are not large scale, but we are one of the most susceptible regions to the impacts of climate change. Therefore, we must promote a vision, a strategic vision on sustainability in our environment. We are carrying forward a comprehensive strategy on energy to optimize our natural resources. Our development strategy, which is low in carbon and high in resilience over the long term by 2050, will promote actions on mitigation in renewables, energy efficiency, air conditioning in public spaces, and electromobility and deforestation. We have established goals that are robust, and they will help us move forward and spearhead our efforts, such as the expanding of renewables and water supply systems, and our biogas efforts to work with our electric infrastructure to make a future that's sustainable for our country. We have also been a model for geothermal efforts in the region. And we were part of an effort along with 45 other countries, and the goal there is to use geothermal energy by 2030 and to have most of our energy using geothermal energy. And we will continue to move forward in that direction. So making our country geothermal is key, and that will consume most of our electric grid. And currently that will work hand in hand with renewable energies to help us depend less on fossil fuels, etc. We are also working with clean energies so that we can improve the lives of our population through the expansion plan on energy for 2028 and a universal access plan to energy. And we hope to be able to have 50% coverage by 2030 in a sustainable and efficient fashion. Madam Chair, regional cooperation and international solidarity are fundamental to move forward to have clean energy that are resilient and inclusive. Protecting the environment requires alliances, public-private alliances, etc. And we must spearhead inter-American cooperation that is effective through available resources in our system. We are fostering dialogue and cooperation with the 4th Inter-American Meeting on High Authorities on Sustainable Development, and also the Summit of the Americas will be a high-level opportunities where we will have the opportunity to share our vision on energy security. And these alliances will be built and bolstered to achieve our goals. Also, this will be an opportunity to keep these alliances at the forefront and to continue to work together over the next 15 years. Madam Chair, this day is absolutely key to create opportunities to build these alliances and to work with communities and to make meaningful change on sustainable consumption to protect our planet, because the planet is a responsibility of everyone. Thank you very much.
El Salvador, I now offer the floor to Paraguay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My delegation would like to say that our hearts are heavy over the passing of Pope Francis, and our hearts go out to the Christian world and the Church. And we hope that he rest in peace. We thank you also for calling this special session of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development and for considering energy transition in the Americas. This is of the utmost importance for our country, given our features, advantages, and our challenges. Also, we commend the presence of Honorable Michael Halkides, Minister of Economic Affairs of the Bahamas and Chair of the Inter-American Committee for Sustainable Development. We also commend the panelists for their interesting statements and presentations. Regarding this matter, Paraguay has an energy mix that is 100% renewable. It comes comprehensively from hydroelectric plants. Also, our carbon emissions per capita are the lowest in the region. Nonetheless, our consumption of energy is heavily comes from oil, about 40%. And they are all imported, while the involvement of electricity in the final consumption is about 22%. We acknowledge, therefore, that the energy transition should not be limited to energy transition. It also involves transportation, industry, consumption habits, and the regulatory frameworks, and addressing equity and resilience. In this regard, the national government, through diverse institutions, namely through the Vice Ministry of Mining and Industry and the Public Works Ministry, they are spearheading important missions that are geared toward expanding the clean energy mix of the country. Among those efforts, we highlight the hydrogen efforts in our country, which seeks to make us a hydrogen economy that will help us in the energy sector. This is the result of joint work among the public and private sector, and consensual measures were taken to achieve these goals. Likewise, we also have the National Electrification Plan for Paraguay. This seeks to make our country 100% have that electrical coverage by 100%. As far as the efficiency and what we're working on, we are working on specific strategies that will promote the quality of life of farmers and to reduce their exposure to smoke and harmful elements. Therefore, we are seeking to increase access to tools that will optimize the use of biomass, and we are exploring other alternative measures. Likewise, the government is also currently working to work on a small-scale project that will help the private sector in the production and use of renewable clean energies that are non-conventional and that are distinct from hydroelectric. That's why it's important that we should highlight the fact that we are using photovoltaic energy, and this is a tangible step towards diversifying our national energy mix. Also, we need to highlight that Paraguay has become the first country in South America to work with the IMF to optimize its financing to support structural initiatives to achieve sustainable development of our projects. So Paraguay reaffirms its commitment to the diversification of its energy mix that is based on its abundant electric energy resources, that is including biomass, wind, and electric. And under the direction of our president, we believe that a more sustainable future is possible. We, in conclusion, would like to highlight the fact that this organization, as well as the Latin American Organization of Energy and the IMF and the IDB and the CAF, are key as we move forward with technical and financial cooperation that is inclusive and as we seek to strengthen the efforts and capabilities of the member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paraguay. I now offer the floor to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Esteemed Chair and City Secretariat, distinguished panelists, with special recognition of Minister Harkitis of the Bahamas, Excellencies, and worthy alternate colleagues, observer missions, I greet you all in the interest of sustainability and with the hope of survival. It is out of great respect for Mother Earth that my delegation is honored to address this particular topic, responding to the critical energy transition priorities in the Americas, energy security, resilience, and sustainability. Indeed, it is a topic that speaks directly to the very survival of mankind on this wonderful home planet of ours. Chair, we often hear the call to save the earth, but that might be considered a vain exercise in arrogance. Hear me, Chair. The earth will survive. It does not need us to save it. The earth will sustain. It will last. However, if in order for it to do so, it becomes necessary for it to purge itself of us, it will do that. Therefore, good and holy people, we might want to rethink the philosophy and redirect our collective thoughts and efforts towards saving ourselves. The way to do that, Chair, is to protect the environment so as to maintain the factors that are necessary for our survival. We must take care of our own well-being on the earth, or else we will be no more while the earth keeps on turning. St. Kitts and Nevis recognizes this fact, Chair and colleagues. As Prime Minister Drew stated at the opening ceremony of the third meeting of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Council of Ministers of Energy, I quote, "As small island developing states, our energy future must be built on a foundation of resilience, innovation, sustainability, and affordability." Close quote. Chair, it is for this reason that St. Kitts and Nevis is developing our solar energy infrastructure. Even in terms of placing solar panels on public buildings and private homes, the private affordable homes. Because we find it absolutely necessary to be proactive in all of our endeavors. Chair, we are developing our wind energy infrastructure. We are developing our geothermal potential. And we are, Chair, placing solar panels not just on public houses, public buildings, but even on affordable buildings and affordable homes, and equipping them with smart meters so that inhabitants, residents can actually sell back excess energy to the grid. That is how seriously we are taking this thrust towards sustainability. Chair, in closing, I would just want to say that St. Kitts and Nevis used to be a country of excess water supplies. Now, as a result of climate change, we have been forced to dig more wells and invest heavily in desalination plants. The Earth crisis has hit home in a most dramatic way. So, it is for this reason also that we are developing our circular economy by banning the use or the importation of single-use plastics like plastic bags, drinking straws, and eventually we will cut them out of our economy completely. This is part of the circular economy that we are developing. My delegation trusts that we will continue to remember the importance of this commemoration, Earth Day, and conduct ourselves and our lives in a way that would promote our own survival on the Earth. Happy Earth Day to all. May it please you, Chair.
I am pleased. St. Kitts and Nevis, I thank you very much. As there are no further comments, I propose that CD expresses gratitude to our invited experts for their contributions and that the Secretariat compile a summary of the cooperation opportunities presented today. Delegations are reminded that these offers can be made available to others via the CorporaNet platform. And I'm urging you to please upload your offers, upload your best practices to the CorporaNet platform, because based on what we've heard today at this meeting, there are some very innovative practices in many countries geared towards the energy transition and the energy addition. We have to save La Madre Tierra. She is our only home. We cannot inhabit outer space at this point. If there are no objections, it is so decided. We have now concluded all items on our order of business. Before we adjourn, I would like to remind the delegations that the next regular meeting of the CD is scheduled for Tuesday, April 29th. It will focus on the theme, Bridging the Literacy and Skills Divide. The Secretariat has distributed the concept notes to inform the dialogue, and we look forward to your participation. I now open the floor for any additional matters that delegations may wish to raise. As there are no further matters, I thank you all for your participation in today's meeting and look forward to our next CD meeting on April 29th. The meeting is adjourned.